Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Have a Little Talk. This is the Creatives Corner. This is episode 3 of that particular series. And I think out of all the episodes, I think this is episode number 22. I might be wrong, but don't quote me on it. um, but today I am joined by my dear sis, the Desiree Burt. We're going to hear a lot from her about what she does, her creative journey, everything like that. By now, you all should know what to expect. This is about being a safe creative. So, just a disclaimer to you, Desiree. It's okay if you go into tongues. Like literally, almost everybody else has gone in tongues at least once, so it is okay. You don't have to hold anything back or, think you have to you know, edit yourself or anything like that. So we're just gonna go ahead and get into it. We'll start with who you are and everything that you do.
So, hi everybody. I am Desiree. That's the name that I like to go by because that's the name my mother called me. But in church world, they call me elder or prophet. And what do? I do everything. I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. So that's really it. I'm a mom of two, and I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Let's see. I am currently completing my master's in human resource management. I'll graduate in June with my master's. I'm also in seminary at the same time. So I will complete my bachelor's of theology. So I will hold a dual degree in that. I also have a bachelor's in criminology, so on the secular end, criminology as well as business administration, with a concentration in accounting. So I kind of have my hand in a few different pots. So that's really what I am all about. I love the Lord. I love being in church. I'm a church girl for sure. Third generation preacher, so I am a PK kid. So I understand the journey of standing on your own, making a name for yourself, being who you are, being an individual, for who you are, as well as still answering the call of God and still trying to mesh both lives together, to be what the Bible calls the salt of the earth as well as the light. So that's a little bit about me. So
Awesome. Um, so my question: when do you sleep? With all of that, my goodness.
Um, it's funny that you would say that. One thing that I've learned, or I would tell people, is you sleep when you're dead, right?
Mm,
But I do rest. I'm usually in the bed by 10:30
okay.
p.m. So I try to make myself go to bed at 10:30. Now, what happens after 10:30 is a different story because I can be up at 3, I can be up at 4 praying. I work 8 to 4, so I'm usually kind of well rested. But definitely 10:30 is about the latest I'm going to be out. So after 10:30, anybody who knows me knows that after 10:30 I get very silly acting. So I'm telling you, very silly because I'm tired. Um,
Right.
and I don't have a problem with sleeping. So I don't have insomnia. I am that person that when you lay in the bed, I'm going to sleep. My head hits the pillow and I'm done, but I will be back up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Just depends. But
Yeah.
that's where I sleep.
Well, that's actually a good thing because some people who I know other people who would like have so many things on their plate like you do, and they just don't sleep at all.
Yeah. No,
Like,
I used to be that way, but your body will tell you when it's time to go to sleep, so your body will crash on you, right? And
yeah.
so once your body starts to crash on you, you kind of know it's time, but you have to make yourself go to sleep. So you really have to find a balance between being creative, being a mom, for me being creative, being a mom, being a worker, going to work, being in church, serving my sorority. You have to learn how to balance all of those things, as well as you have to know when to say no, right? And so you have to be okay with saying no, right? You can't be at every, I can't be at every church function. I can't be at every sorority function. I can't be at everything that the kids do. I
Mhm.
just can't physically, I can't. But you have to know when to say no and be okay with saying no, because you have to know your limit. Like, we know your triggers when you get upset, but you have to know your
Yeah.
limit of, okay, this is way too much for me. I can't take on another project. I can't do another I can't do another conference, or I can't host another event. I can't, show up at this sorority thing. Some
Yeah.
things, some Saturday mornings, people will ask me, what are you doing today? And I'll say I'm being a productive member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, right? So that means that I committed myself to do whatever that the sorority asked me to do for that particular day. Third Saturdays usually is our chapter meeting. I commit to making it at my chapter meeting. That's my Saturday. I know I have to be there. But I also have community service hours that I have to put in. So I have to space out my community service things. I can't go to every time the NPCH has something. I can't go to every Greek function. I just physically can't do it. But as long as I'm committed to one thing or two things, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at my chapter meetings. I'm going to do that. I'm going to, if it doesn't interfere with anything else, I'm going to make it happen, right? Or I'm going to pick and choose a thing. Martin Luther King Day, I'm going to do my day of service. I may not do something else that day, but I'm going to do my day of service. So I may not go to the brunch, but I'm going to go to day of service, because day of service might be 2 hours. I gave my 2 hours. I still have the rest of my 8 or 9 hours to do the things that I have to do, but I've still managed that time. And I think with being creative and being saved and being in all these things, you have to have great time management skills. And a lot of people just don't have time management skills because they don't like to say no. And you feel obligated to say yes or continue to say yes when, in fact, no, I can't do it. I can't spread myself out so thin. I don't physically have it, and even
Yeah.
in the physicalness is even financial, because you spread yourself so thin at so many different things that you're expected to give at every event. You're expected to have finances for this. You need a new outfit for this. You need something for this, and you just can't do it all. So it's okay to say I can't do it. Or sometimes people ask me, oh, can you create a flyer for this, or can you do something for this? I don't have it on my budget or my time to do it. I
Mhm.
find somebody that I trust, that I know can do the work and can do it even better than me. I'm not greedy. So I'll pass it on to somebody else. I'm good for calling, tagging in flyers. I do content creating and flyers as well. But I will definitely tag Tyron Franklin. Like, hey,
Mhm.
they need somebody to do this, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tag you away. I'm gonna just go tag other people, other individuals that are saved, that are trying to get their names out there, that's trying to do these things, because you have to know when enough is enough on your plate. So that's how I sleep at night. So 10:30, if you're calling me, I tell my daughters, if you're out, call my phone. Don't send me a text message, but let
Mhm.
me know that you're going out, because at 10:30, it's a do not disturb. I'm going to bed.
Yeah. That's good. And every creative on here, every creative who sees this, hears this, yeah, I hope that, and we just got into it, but I hope you guys take this in. It's very important for you all to know when to say no, when enough is enough. Don't spread yourself too thin. And I'm even taking it in for myself. I've started setting boundaries, but I I could do better in some areas.
Yeah.
Um I being creative, like being a creative person, sometimes you're misunderstood, and that could turn into becoming a people pleaser, and then it's like a snowball effect. And so then that's where it comes from. Us feeling like we have to be everywhere and do everything, and we don't say no because we want everyone to be pleased with us. But I mean, that's not a realistic. I don't think it's a realistic thing.
I think with that, the only person I really want to be pleased with me is God,
Yeah.
right? Because, and I'm a little bit older than you, Malika. I've lived a little while longer, but um I've learned that you can be replaced,
Mm.
right? So here's where I get this from. So this is the HR side, right? And I
Yeah.
hear it a lot of times where people say a job will fire you without notice, right? They will replace you. But if you die, they're going to send you a flower and a card, and you're replaced. You're gone, right? So why am I putting on so much stress to people please people, that when I'm not here, you're going to replace me anyway? You you know, it's you can you're easily to be replaced. Like, you'll be missed, but you can be replaced,
Yeah.
right? So I've learned like, hey, I'm not going to kill myself and stress myself out trying to please everybody. And I learned that early, not early on, but I learned that through a health scare.
Mm.
Right. And so
Wow.
I was doing that. I was working, 12 hours. I used to work in the healthcare field. So I was working 12 hours and I was in the emergency room. And I was a manager there. And then I would have to go home and be mom with two
Mm,
children that were dancing and then be served in church as an adjutant and be at every church service and every function and still try to have a personal life. And one day I was at the doctor's office and I was like, my chest hurts.
mm,
Right. And so they was like, are you having chest pains? And I was like, yeah, but you try to chalk it up. Like maybe it's gas. We move it around. Maybe I drink a ginger ale and get a good
right.
Pepsi or Coke, whatever
Yeah.
your favorite is. Right. And so that didn't move it. So they hooked me up to an EKG machine and it was like some irregularities in my heart. So they gave me a nitroglycerin. So if anybody knows, nitroglycerin is kind of help bring your pressures and stuff down and balance you out if you're having that. Well, I had to have two of those and it still didn't stop the flutters in my heart. So they rushed me. They, let me drive my car. I'm gonna say rush, but I was at my doctor's office and she wanted to admit me to the hospital. But I worked in a hospital, so I was like, let me go to my hospital
Oh,
because
okay.
at least my insurance is gonna cover me 100% at my own hospital.
Right.
And so I got there, went to the emergency room, and went straight to work. Not even doing what she asked me to do. Still having these chest flutters. Because here's the thing, I'm chalking it up to everything else. I had too much caffeine. I might just be tired. It's gas, right? But all day
Mhm.
long, I kept having these chest pains. So I went to the ER, towards the end of my shift, and I was like, yo, I think I'm having chest pains. And they was like, how long you been having chest pains? I was like, well, they gave me two nitroglycerins earlier today when I was at the doctor's office. And this is how I'm really talking. And they're looking at me like, you're crazy. Hook me up again to the EKG machine. Numbers is all out of whack. Call the
Mm,
cardiologist down, and he's like, I think I'm going to take you to the cath lab. To the cath lab, that means you're getting ready to go in and literally look at the vessels in my heart. Literally, not having a heart attack, but could definitely be on the verge of having a heart attack. And he said, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a stress test. I'm going to prescribe you 3 days off from work. Something went wrong. Please try again. Okay. So he prescribes me 3 days off from work. And then I have what they call a stress test where
mhm.
you have to run on the machine on the treadmill. Well, I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even run on the treadmill because the chest pains was bad. The shortness of breath was bad. Right. And so then I had to have the one where they do the injection, which forces the medicine to race the heart.
Mm.
That's all it is. And then he calls me into his office to give me the results. And he says, you're not having a heart attack, but I think you're overworking yourself.
Wow.
I think you're taking on more than what you can handle. I was probably like 37 years old, 36, 37. And he
Wow.
was like, if you want to live a long time, you have to learn how to say no. you know don't work so much in the hospital, like working hours, just constantly work
Yeah,
being to work at 7 o'clock, staying to 8 o'clock, then driving home. All of that takes a toll on your body,
it
right?
does.
So we're talking about being creative, but we got to set boundaries to be creative. How can I think about being creative when my health is all where it's at, right?
Right.
Now I have, now guess what, if I was out of work for about 4 weeks, who was doing my job? I wasn't. And when I came back to work, I didn't have 4 weeks of work left either, because you can be replaced.
Yeah.
So from that moment on, I realized I can't take on more than what I can handle. And personally, I'm not going to take on more than I can handle. And so I learned how to say no. Although a lot of times I want to get up and do it, I can't. The older I get, the more I'm like, somebody else can do that.
Right.
You have to think twice about it. Like,
For
no,
sure.
I'm not in my 20s anymore. My body's not going to bounce back as quick as it was.
Mhm.
So you have to learn to take those things. I enjoy after church naps.
Ooh, I love a good
I
nap.
love a good nap. And I mean nap all the way. It's really not a nap for me because I'm taking up putting my pajamas on and everything and I'm getting under the covers. But you have to, but this is the time that you have to learn how to recharge, right? So
Yeah,
how can you be an effective creative in anything that you do and you're not recharging yourself, right? You have to learn how to recharge. So that is one of the reasons why a no is a no for me and I don't feel no ways about it. I used to, but I don't feel no ways about it because my health is more important.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean it's a bit of a cliche now, but it's true. You can't pour from an empty cup. Like if you have nothing to give, and when you're being creative, and when you're a safe creative, it's best to be at 100, to be able to like give your all and really pour into it the way you want to.
Yeah,
Because like just as a regular well, not sorry, y'all aren't regular if you're not saved, it's okay. Oh, as a creative in general, that's better. um we we tend to be perfectionists, and we a lot of times our creativity is our outlet. So we just naturally pour a lot into it anyway. But like if you're stressed out and stretched too thin, it's like you you can't you can't really pour into it like you want to.
you
And
can't.
especially for those who want to create full time, that's another thing, like learning that balance, so that when you do transition, so that you're not stretched too thin.
You have to, and then the other thing is you have to find people that can pour into you.
That's good too.
Right.
Yeah.
So as I'm creating whatever I'm creating, as of like right now, if you follow me on social media, you know that I have the conference coming up, right? And
Mm.
so all of my attention literally has been focused on the conference, right?
Right.
So making sure the guests are good, making sure everything is in place because that's just what it's going to be. But next month, April, I'm away
Mm.
for 3 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days. I'm away for 3 days because I now need to have somebody pour back into me because
Right.
I've emptied out. So like by the time the conference comes, I would have been done emptied out anything that I have, right? So I'm
Right.
not doing much. Not that I'm not doing much, but I'm not talking as much in church, right?
Yeah.
So Sunday mornings, I'm not leading prayer on Sunday mornings. Not that I can't, but I'm not doing that. I'm coming and I'm at the altar because when I get ready to pour out for the conference, then I have to go back so that I can be poured back into,
Right.
right? So we're constantly pouring as creators, whether you're a pastor or secondary leadership or even in management as parents, as a spouse, you're constantly pouring into somebody else, but never take the time to figure out who's going to pour back into me,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
then who pours into you has to be greater than where you are, right? So I
Exactly.
can't
Yeah.
I can't go have a conference, talking about the altar and then I can't find myself somewhere who can pour back all of what I'm pouring out back into me. Why would I go to someone that's less than my own gifting to pour back into me, right? Because
Right.
then I'm gonna leave drained. So if you ever notice, sometimes like people will pour back into you or do different things, and you be like, "Dang, I feel worse off talking to them than I did before I got here." It's because
Yeah.
they don't have the capacity to pour into the levels in which you're on, right?
Yeah.
And where you are. So you wind up leaving even more drained or more frustrated than you were when you first walked into whatever the sessions are. So that's why you have to learn how, one, to pour and then to be poured into, right? Because then you can't
Absolutely.
re-pour. It's a replenishing thing. So one thing I've learned and noticed about us that are in ministry and been in ministry for a while, we don't really do vacations,
Yeah, we
right?
don't.
We really don't. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with my pastor and she was like, "When was the last time you were on vacation?" And I was like, "Vacation? Convocation is vacation.
I
That's not
was just going to say that.
vacation. So that's not vacation.
No,
That's
it is
not
not.
vacation.
It's not.
You take vacation days for it, but it's not a vacation because you're working, right? When are
Exactly.
you on vacation?" And I had to think and say, I have not taken a vacation probably in 4 or 5 years. So when do you really not just recharge because now people pour into you and that's what gives you your spiritual boost, but when do you relax
Yeah. Like
and
do
then
nothing.
settle your mind in one area, just become settled, right?
Yeah.
Just settled. Like you're on vacation, especially like I like to take cruises, right? So if you
Mhm.
go on a cruise, you everything is paid for. When I get up in the morning and take my shower and leave, I don't have to make up the bed because somebody's going to come and make up my bed. Somebody's cooking the food for me, right?
Right,
And so
right.
you're not thinking, you just get the chance to literally sit by the water, read a book and breathe,
Yeah.
right? Take and it's funny because I was laughing at my pastor and I was like, "Well, you getting ready to go?" She just came back from vacation, and she was like, "The first 2 or 3 days she sleeps." What? Because remember, she's constantly pouring.
Yeah.
So you, even though she sleeps at home, she's still constantly pouring. Somebody's texting, somebody's calling. There's somebody I got to go visit in the hospital. There's a meeting I got to have. All right.
Yeah.
So even though I'm sleeping, I'm still constantly pouring, but now I have time to replenish. So we re-pour, but we have to replenish. And
Yep.
that's one part that we never really get to. We'll get somebody to pour back into us, but then we don't get to replenish.
Right.
So then, even when they're repouring into me, I'm pouring right back out. So they're pouring back into me. I'm at 50%. They put me back to 100. I'm still really right back at 50 because I'm pouring right back out again. It's a cycle
Yeah.
because I never get to replenish. So when you have to schedule these things, these no's, these vacations, these these getaways, these quote unquote me day, my day, spa days, all of these things, they help you as a creative, whether in ministry or not, to keep a fresh mind. Why does everybody's stuff start to look the same? Why? It's because I ran out of ideas.
Yeah.
Like, and so now I'm looking at your stuff and I'm like, oh, let me try this. I'm gonna just flip it the opposite way. I'm gonna use a different color because we're running out of ideas because people are not really replenishing. They
Right.
make the rapport, but it's not a replenish. So
Right.
that definitely, some of the things that I take into consideration.
That's good. That's good. I mean, if no one else takes that part to heart, I know I will for sure. Because sometimes, like when I'm a very I'm very black and white with a lot of things. It's like I either hit the ground running and go 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 go, or I just don't do anything at all. So like I'm working on finding balance, and even with this, like I still work full time. I'm a wife. I still have my dog, everything like that, and being a first lady now. So yeah, I'm just working on finding balance and also taking that time to rest and to replenish. So definitely keeping that in mind.
Absolutely.
And you started to touch on it a little bit about having people pour back into you. I feel like um I talked about it on a previous episode about community. I feel like that's very important just in general, but also as a saved creative. How I guess I would say, like, how important is that to you, and how were you able to find people to pour into you?
It's very important for me, especially from what I came from,
Mhm.
right? So, I had my oldest daughter, I was only 22 years old, right? So here you got a PK kid who just had a baby out of wedlock, kind of finding their own footing,
Mhm.
their own voice in life and different things. So I grew up fast, right?
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I'm from the hood, but I grew up fast, right?
Mhm.
And so I was fortunate enough to find people that loved me, to nurture me in different areas of my life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I was raised more with my grandmother than I was with my parents, but my grandmother loved me, right? And so she gave me a foundation. So she gave me God, but she gave me a stern foundation, right? And she couldn't teach me so much about all of motherhood, but she could teach me enough of what she could. The
Mm.
rest of it was trial and error, right?
Right.
And so thank God I didn't kill the baby. She's 21 years old now, and she's getting her master's degree. So I must have done something
Oh,
amazingly right in this picture, right? And I always say that, right? But and so you learn through trial and error. Like, okay, you talk to certain people, and it's unfortunate, but it's fortunate. You talk to people, you meet people, and not all the time do they show you their true colors up front. Sometimes it takes a long time to see the hidden motives, or to see the hidden agendas, or to see that this person may not be for you. I am definitely one to believe in seasons, right?
for
Some
sure.
people are just seasonal, and your season or some people's seasons are just up, and it's nothing against them, but you take what you can take, you learn, and you move on.
Right.
It's not for me to stay in all areas at all times, but it's enough for me to grow, to learn and move, right? And
Right.
so that's really why I feel that way. How did I get there? um Through trial and error. It was really a lot through trial and error. um I believe in both sides of counseling, so I believe in the spiritual counselors, and I believe in those that give medicine, right? um
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I've been in both areas of the counseling to realize where my triggers are, what makes me go, what makes me not go. Why do I work so hard, right? Why am I always trying to do something, right? And one of my favorite parts of scriptures is idle hands is the devil's workshop, right? So a lot of
Absolutely.
times some people don't know why they're so busy, right? But I can pinpoint the reason why I'm busy. Is because if I'm not busy, what am I doing? Right? I might get into some kind of trouble or something, right?
Yeah.
I like tattoos. So if I don't have anything to do, I might wind up with another tattoo. Like, it's some people have a weakness, right?
Yeah. Of
Some
course.
people stay busy because they used to be an alcoholic. And if they get a moment to not be so busy, they might fall right back into a level of depression, or back into, smoking cigarettes or marijuana, or hanging out around
Mhm.
people that are not. So there's reasons why sometimes people are so creative, right? That
Yeah.
their brains are constantly going, because seriously, if I stop, what would I get into? Right. So I
Yeah.
was already thinking, like, dag, I graduate in June with my master's. I'm gonna be finished that, and I'm gonna be finished seminary. What I'm gonna do, right? Because now I feel
Yeah.
like I got all this extra time on my hands. Where,
Yeah.
you know, and so, like, no, you really don't have extra time. You can push something else that's been not on the back burner, but something else that's not been given 100%. You can do a little bit more to that. I really
Yeah.
don't have extra time, right? So when I make time, I literally make time for people. If I say, tell me, I'm gonna make the time. Um,
Yeah.
but I just think that people have to find their voices, and be okay with the voice you find, right? And not mimic other voices.
Yes.
You know, um I'm okay with who God has created me to be. I may not be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not everybody's favorite preacher. That's fine, but I'm somebody's favorite,
For
right?
sure.
And I may not have the delivery like other people, but I have my own delivery. And
Yes.
when you become comfortable in who you are, then you become comfortable in whose you are. And then getting to be replenished, you will find those same people
Yeah.
that can replenish you, that are like you, right? So I go, me personally, every week I make it a point to have a conversation with my pastor for an hour on, it could be anything, and we talk about anything and everything, right?
Mhm.
And not that I've never had that before, but I'm so much more comfortable where I am in my life now, that I'm okay with having those conversations that were harder for me to have with other people.
Yeah.
And we talk about those things, like, so where you are, what are you doing, what's up, how's your day going, what's
Yeah.
on your agenda, write down, and these are tasks, write down write down everything you're doing, write down everything you're thinking, right? And so when you start doing those things, you kind of put a self consciousness awareness on what you're doing, where you are, and completing those tasks, right? And so
Yeah.
those are definitely some of the things that I feel as a creative mind, as a spiritual being, that has really helped and guided me in this particular journey that I'm in now.
That is really good. And sidebar, if you've never heard Desiree preach, you're missing out. I'm, I'm trying to tell you, like, I heard you preach and it was amazing. I was amazed in the best way. Like,
God be the glory.
yeah, it was amazing. And I forgot what I was gonna ask. Um, sorry, y'all, I lost my train of thought. But where were we? We were talking about community being poured into, taking a break. Um, so I'll say, okay, so up until now, what are the different things creatively that you've produced so far?
So far, what have I creatively produced that's not church wise? Nah. So, um, outside of everything I do have a mentorship program.
Oh,
It is called GEMS, and it stands for God's encouraging me to soar. And so it is really based for young ladies, ages 11 to 15, to help them through the transitions, right? So you're transitioning from middle school into high school, of those natures. And I feel that those are definitely the ages that we miss, that have the most um, problems. And it came about for me. God gave me the vision years ago, of course, but it came about for me more so when my little cousin committed suicide,
mm,
and he was like 12 years old. And I realized that there was a lack, somewhere. We missed something.
yeah,
Like we were missing the signs, we were missing the moments, to be present in people's lives, like just to be present in young people's lives. And with me working in a criminal field, because by day I was a juvenile correction officer, and working in that, I realized that a lot of our young ladies and men just did not have the right mentors.
yeah,
Right. And so you talk to young ladies and you see them doing things, giving their bodies out for sex and for money and drugs. And you ask them why, like, why are you doing this? And they really can't even tell you why. And a lot of them were taken advantage of at a younger age. So this may be the only way they know, but they look up to people who can show them a different way, right? And be committed to showing them a different way. So
right,
one thing is, I'm definitely committed to showing young ladies and men a different way. I have four mentors under my program. I have not been working it as much as I should, and that is because I took on being, for Alpha Kappa Alpha, I took on 2 years of being a mentor, in the sorority. So I didn't want it to be a conflict of interest,
right,
because we have a program right now for 11 to 13-year olds. So because I was already doing it on my own, I didn't want it to be a conflict of interest. And
right,
my 2 years is up, this year on that committee. So I will go back to doing it on my own. But sometimes you just have to balance these things because it can be considered a conflict of interest. Um, so that's really where my heart has been, definitely reclaiming this generation, because I'm a mom, right? So
right,
before I'm anything, I'm a mom too. I have a 21-year-old and I have a 14-year-old who has definitely undergone bullying,
mm,
in school, who did try to commit suicide. So, and I'm thankful that it was an unsuccessful attempt. Praise God.
yeah,
But I understand, that feeling of nobody loves me, even though everybody's telling me that they love me, or me not feeling like I'm wanted or I'm not a part of something. One thing that we don't talk about a lot of times or we don't realize is how much it impacts our children when we are preachers, right?
For sure.
and how they, sometimes we pull our kids into the limelight with us, but that's not their call, right? I've heard people say, don't live your dream through your children, right? And so a
Yeah.
lot of times I feel that people live vicariously a second life through their children, and force them into things that may not really be their desire. And so sometimes they may grow up loving it, and sometimes they may grow up hating it, right?
Right.
um and it can work both ways. They can love it just as much as you do, or they can hate it just as much, because they feel like they were forced into things. So I've learned, and those are the things. So when I do my mentorship, I have a no judgment zone. Yes, I'm a preacher. Yes, I know the Bible. I know the things of the Bible, but I like to listen, because a lot of times we miss that part. We miss them crying out for help because we're not listening. We're
Mm,
already prejudging and just telling them, hey, this is what we're going to do,
yeah.
but no, let me listen to what you're saying. Let me really hear the hurt that comes behind, you wanting to, kill yourself. Why do you, and that's a big thing, right? Young ladies wanting to kill themselves, gentlemen wanting to kill themselves because they feel
Oh yeah.
like they've not accomplished anything, and I'm like, how you're 12? What
Right.
what? You haven't accomplished anything. I'm 45 and I haven't accomplished anything, but I'm still here. But I understand that because I battled with that for a while too, Um and so I like to work with the young people. Some of the things that I also do in the community is definitely big on community outreach and the homelessness, right? So the homeless have a big part in my heart. So I did last year a sock drive, partnered with my church, and I did a sock drive, and we were able to collect over 200 pairs of socks to
Wow.
give to the homeless shelter. I've gone to the food banks, and I've served food, to the homeless shelter. I've been in the street with the homeless. I've prayed with them, because that is nothing against it, but I don't want recycled people in church.
Yeah.
I don't. I really believe that we sometimes have forgot that generation or those people that are out there. Everybody that's homeless is not because they're homeless because they were on drugs.
Right.
It's expensive to live out here.
It
It's
is.
expensive in the streets, right? And if you're making $15 an hour, you can't afford to live in no place that's charging 3 or 4 times the amount of rent, that you're making. You need, at one time when I was younger, $20 an hour, that was a lot of money. But
Yeah.
$20 an hour now is nothing. That's you could spend $20 at McDonald's. Like,
Right.
a meal at Chick-fil-A is about $12.
Yeah.
So you $20 is really nothing. You have to literally be making 80 to 90,000, if not even more, to afford a decent place to live. Right. So, a lot of people forget that the homeless. And so I want to be an active voice in the community, especially here in Dover. So if you're in the Dover, Delaware area, we have a very huge population of homelessness, and they're migrating down from Philadelphia, right? So that's
Yeah.
even the thing, because Philly, Kensington area, I've been on Kensington working with the homeless, and they have tents set up. Like, I've never seen something like that before in my life. But they have tents and they have the porta potties and things like that. And so we can't frown at that, because I always tell my kids, listen, we could be one check away from being homeless. You know, we
Very true.
we we could be evicted any day. Like, our landlord could be like, I don't want y'all here. And then what you gonna do? Because the majority of us live paycheck to paycheck anyway.
Yep.
So you just have to think. So for me as a creative, outside of doing church, outside of doing AKA, outside of working, you can find me at the homeless shelter. You really could find me talking to them. I'm not scared of them. I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna laugh with them. I'm gonna joke with them. I'm gonna touch their hands, because I feel like that is being the hands and feet of Jesus. That is being the light of the world. Recycle church people, I'm good. I'm good. It's a new church opening up. Everybody's going to flock to the new church because they got a great choir, they got musicians and all this other stuff. but who's flocking to save the people in the world? I don't necessarily have to preach in the pulpit. I got the whole street to preach to.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to call me to preach. I got
Yeah.
a whole street that I can witness, be Christ like too, and not frown upon them. So if you want to know what Desiree's doing, that's my heart. That's really my heart. Community outreach, evangelism, and the young people. That's really my heart. Like that. At the end of the day, all else will fail. That's really my heart.
That's good. That is really, really good. And just to piggyback off what you just said, like only what you do for Christ will last. And as a saved creative, it's good to remember that. Don't be out here chasing platforms and pulpits and things of that nature. And everyone is not meant to be behind the mic. Everyone is not called to the pulpit or to the stage or whatever it is. Some people are are called to the streets to help the homeless. Some people are called to the youth. It's important to learn those things. What are you called to? And that's why and that's kind of what we're going to segue into next is having a connection to God and making sure you're cultivating that relationship with God. So we'll just start with like how was that process for you, like learning the voice of God and building that connection with you and him.
Hmm. Learning the voice of God. It happened early on.
Mhm.
So like I said, I'm a PK kid, third generation preacher. But I heard God early. I was probably, I've been in church since I was 5. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I heard God early. So, 5 and 6, I was having visions and going places and seeing things that weren't even there anymore, that might have been there in like the 30s and the 40s, and not really knowing where I was, but knowing things. And then he visited me. I was 13 years old. I'll never forget. I was 13 years old, and I was in a choir in my church, and it was our church and it was our choir's anniversary, and we were singing "Silver and Gold" by Kirk Franklin and the family. Right, so I'll never forget it. Like, and it was just something about I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. Right,
Yeah.
and the tears just started falling, and of course, my grandmother not having the Holy Ghost. Right, didn't understand why we were crying. It was just like a whole bunch of kids crying, right? And she was like, did somebody bother you? No, that's the first thing. Who got you? Who bothered you? And then the next week when we were in church, our pastor asked us like what was going on. And I was like, it was something about saying I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold, right? And it clicked. Like everything about that song is still really one of my favorite songs now, and I'm starting to tear up now because when I think about don't give me a mansion on top of a hill, you know, don't give me the world with a shallow thrill, but just give me Jesus.
Yeah.
Just I don't need all of this other stuff, but if you give me Jesus, I have everything that I need, right? And so it was from that moment then I got baptized, and I remember getting baptized and like literally buying little Bibles, the ones that just had the New Testament in it, and carrying them and handing them out to everybody, like, and was really on fire for Christ because I wanted everybody to experience that same love that I had felt. Like it was like literally a whole different life, right?
Yeah.
And of course life happens, life is life in, and I enjoyed life, right? I did everything I wanted to do, everything I was big enough and bad enough to do, um while life was life in. And but he never forgot about me,
Hmm.
even while I was doing my sin, even while I was in the club, even while I was drinking. He still never forgot about me. My friends was like, you don't belong here.
Mm.
I, people would be like, she don't belong in the club. You ain't got no rhythm. You ain't got this. You ain't got that. You know, get ready for the club, reading the Bible. Like who does like it like the vibes are off, right? Because when God has his hand on your life, no matter what you do, it will always point you back to Christ.
For
No
sure.
matter how you try to run, no matter how you try to jive it, no matter how you try to manipulate the system, it's always going to be a pull, right? Between what good and evil. It's always says I wrestle, in my flesh.
Mm,
And so as I got older, I started experiencing God in a different way, um, and things that would normally bother other people, it just didn't bother me. I was like, it was okay. And so hearing God's voice definitely came through a lot of prayer. It came through a lot of fasting, but it also came through a lot of hurt,
mm,
right?
yeah.
A lot of crushing, right? A lot of dying to my own will, a lot of dying to my flesh. Um, and really not even understanding. So one thing about me is I don't really have a lot of friends, which is okay. I'm cool with that.
Mhm.
But like when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends, even in church. Like I just didn't I wasn't a part of the in crowd. I wasn't the it girl. And when I was younger, I didn't understand that, but that was because God had always made me different.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you are different and you have a different type of level of anointing on your life or a different type of call on your life, you don't always fit into the crowds. No matter how hard you try, you always seem to stick out like a sore thumb in certain crowds. Right. And it's amazing because sometimes I think back, like all the young ladies and people that didn't care for me. I'm not going to say they didn't care for me, but I wasn't in the in crowd. They
Mhm.
inbox me, Desiree, can you pray for me? But yeah, and sometimes you want to be like, well, y'all didn't even like me when I was growing up, but y'all y'all call me to pray. Okay, all right.
Crazy.
But then God said to me, I did that because if you were so close to them, you wouldn't be able to pray for them
Mm,
because you would know their business. And so as a prophet, it wouldn't be me prophesying, it would be just me having a conversation with a friend.
right, right,
Because I'm not close to y'all. If I call you and say, "Hey, this and that," then it's definitely God because I don't hang out with you.
right.
You know, and so, but that's really how it was. And it was definitely a lot of praying, a lot of fasting, a lot of being under people that could pull and prime different gifts out of me.
Mhm.
And of course, I'll give all honor and reverence to Apostle Hamilton because being called a prophet and knowing that God called you a prophet, but having somebody to really activate the prophetic in you takes a different level, right? So
For sure.
people have prophesied to me that oh, you're a prophet of God. I've been in all different types of prophetic classes and prophetic schools and stuff, and people's like, oh, I'm laying hands on you and I'm activating your gift. I'm laying hands on you and I'm activating your gift.
Mm,
It was activated, right? It didn't work, right? But Bishop laid his hands on me and the gift was activated.
yeah.
And it comes from a transfer of spirits, but it also comes from being ready to receive what God has for you, right?
That's
So
good.
not to say that they didn't lay hands on me and nothing took place, but I may not to myself been in a place to receive what God was trying to give to me because I hadn't been broken enough,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
so it comes from a lot of breaking. It comes from, the crushing. We talk about the olive oil, but it's a lot of the crushing. But one of my favorite parables is the parable of the pearl. And Jesus talks about that pearl and the junk that it takes to make a pearl, right? I love
Right.
pearls, not because I'm an AKA, but I love pearls anyway, right?
It's
But
cute.
it's just true. But what it takes to make a pearl, what the oyster goes through to get the pearl and to find such a gem, through all the gook, through all the heartaches, to all the things that I've been through in my life, and I'll share because it's just life and it's part of my life. My mother gave me up when I was 4 years old. Really, my grandmother didn't want to raise another child, but she wound up taking me on anyway. To me being adopted,
Mhm.
um, to my biological mom was on drugs, which was the reason why she gave me up. She would just drop me off at the crack people's house, and use me as payment. But thanks be unto God, they never touched me. That was
Good.
never my testimony, right? But I
Yeah.
was dropped off there, right? And so who wouldn't serve a God that shields a child from when we know that that's what they do? They will
Right.
rape the child. They don't care. They
Don't.
they would take me to my grandmother and say her mom left her again. So it wasn't one time, it was several times, right?
Yeah.
um to being an outcast, to meeting my biological father, to my biological father saying to me, I don't want nothing to do with you, I don't ever want to see you again, right? So you get rejected by your mom, you get rejected by your dad. I right? And still I'm still pressing. I'm still pressing, right? Because
Yeah.
it's got to be something better, right? It's got to be something better, right? To having my daughter, and her father deciding that he didn't want to be a part of her life, and doing his own thing or whatever, to feeling that maybe there is nobody for me, maybe God doesn't love me enough to show me love, right? Then to getting married and not having a great marriage, being in an abusive relationship, marriage or whatever, then to coming out of that, to then being in a more of an abusive situation, verbal and mental, a lot of mental abuse.
Mm.
And still trying to preach the gospel, still trying to, well, God, I know you called me to preach, I don't feel like preaching, to being a functioning depressed person, right? So I was getting up in the morning, going to work, crying on my way to work, working at my job, getting in my car, crying all the way home, eating dinner, not eating dinner, sometimes taking a dinner in my room, scraping it in the trash can because I didn't want to eat, because I was functioning but I was depressed. And I'm
Right.
in the church and I'm still shouting, I'm still dancing, and I'm still serving, serving as an adjutant, serving in all capacities. And I'm like, God, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And so when I think of the parable of the pearl, that's what I think of. All of that junk, all of that crushing, all of that, misunderstanding, all of that abuse, all of that neglect, all of the alcoholism and, the perversion, and, I wasn't perfect. I've had my share of, you know, relationships, all of that. God still opened up an oyster and pulled out his most precious pearl. And,
Wow.
and so you say, how do you hear God's voice? It was through all of that, because at the end of the day, there was nobody else to talk to. I had nobody else, right? My
Right.
family, majority of my biological family is deceased now, right? So I didn't get closures. I didn't get to say goodbye and, we're gonna mend these things. Who else is there to talk to? Who else he's gonna bottle my tears? Who else is there? They say weeping may endure for a night, endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So I had to endure in the night.
Whew.
And my night was a
Yeah.
long night. It was long, you know? And but it was worth the wait. It was worth the wait. Where I am now in my life, it was worth, I look back at it and I say, God, you are worth the wait. Right? Because
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, I would have never been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna jump on here and do I'm not doing, I don't do stuff like this. You're asking too much for me, right? But I'm in a different place and I can say, God, everything that you put me through or I went through, it was worth the wait. And I take that text, when the sons um when the sons of God and the devil was walking, to and fro seeking who they may devour, and God says, have you considered my servant Job? And sometimes I say, we always look at the losses of Job, but just think, God, you were considered. God said, have you considered my servant? So that means that God already knew. He said to Satan, have you considered Desiree? Have you considered Malika? Have you
Mhm.
considered Michael? Like, have you? That means I'm on the mind of God, so much so that he considered me to go against the enemy,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so why hear his voice? I don't hear his voice. I know his voice. I know when he's
I know
talking. I'm secure in when I hear God say Desiree. I'm secure when God says Malika. You got to be secure when he says Mike. Like, because I've been through too much to not be secure and trust another voice. Why would I trust another voice? I've been through too much. You can't fool me. You can't fool me with, and you can't trick me with street gang. I know street gang. you can't you can't I no point intended. I love the story, but you can't Risa Tisa me. You can't you can't change my tire, buy me a tire and take me to Cheesecake Factory and think we good. No, this too quick for me.
Yeah.
No, and I'm sorry that she went through that, and it's no point intended, but I know God's voice.
Yeah.
Because I know his voice, I know when he's speaking. I know when he's saying, Desiree, it's time to move.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to go. You're going to stay too long. And I've been in a place where I've stayed too long and I overstayed. It's some things that say don't go to nobody's house and overstay your welcome. Don't stay too long, you overstay your time.
Yeah.
There's seasons where we've been in too long and
Fact.
God has been talking to us, but we got so many people talking that we don't know his voice. And we're comparing his voice to other people's voices and we're saying they're not lining up, but
Mm.
God is talking. But I know his voice and I know when he says it's time to move. It's time to go. You got to go. You got to move from this. And
Yeah.
it's no feelings lost, no love lost, but it's time to go. And that's just where I am. And so when people say, how do you know God called you to be a prophet? Why didn't
Right.
he? Why wouldn't he? What else did he call me to do? What else?
Honestly.
Not being funny or anything like that. But even with that title, even with being called a prophet, and I think I said it at convocation, that title has been so marred.
Yeah.
So you don't want to accept the title because it's got so much attached to it, right? People are Facebook prophets, they parking lot prophets, they pew prophets. They in it for the money, they in it for this, they in it for the glamour. But they in it for fame and fortune, and none of it was fame and fortune. Elijah went up under the juniper tree ready to kill himself. Jonah
Right.
went in the belly of the well. Like he was literally he was like, bump this, I'm out. Like, no,
Right.
I'm not doing that. Hosea was told to marry a woman who was unclean. Like none of
Like,
the
come on.
Maya wheat. Like none of this is like, come on. Like
It's not glamorous.
Abraham had to take Isaac up. It's like sacrifices. Hey, wait a second. Moses pulled them through the Red Sea. Like, go to Pharaoh and do what? What part of this is glamour? Because I ain't seen none of it yet.
I haven't. Me neither.
And so when these titles and things like that, it's like, okay, and I say it all the time and I say it to anybody. It was Bishop that when he laid his hands on me, he affirmed and he did it publicly,
Mhm.
but he also pulled it out.
Yeah.
And so now it's pulled out and it's like water and it won't stop. you know um but it's a great journey. It's a great journey to be on, but it's more because I'm a healed person to be on
Yeah.
this journey. And so I'm not ministering out of brokenness. I'm not ministering to people from a broken space.
Right.
I'm not ministering to people from hurt. I'm literally ministering to people through the voice of God. And all the messages are God messages. I don't have messages. I don't get a message until Saturday. I don't get a message
Mm.
until Sunday morning. I don't have it. Don't ask me for notes because I ain't got none. Just if they come, they come. But
Right.
sometimes I gotta play the role and be like, okay, God, they calling for the elder today, so the elder gotta give them a word. So he put me on the flyer as a prophet, and okay, God, you must be gonna speak. Play me at any key because I don't have it. But those are the things. But you learn God through the crushing. You learn God through the being crushed and made as an oil. But you really know God through prayer.
Yeah.
You really know God through prayer, right? And so I probably never prayed as much um as I have in the last 4 years. And it's no, I mean, I can be an honest preacher and say I wasn't doing all that praying. I wasn't. And like I really wasn't. It wasn't my thing. Like I'm eating my food. I'm not praying. Man, I'm going to sleep. Like, no, like people make it seem like they do it all the time. No, some people
Yeah.
really just don't do it. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm rolling over, I'm checking my text messages. I'm hearing what God got to say. I'm getting up, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm cutting the TV on, but it was in those still moments that God was literally like, my phone wouldn't cut on at 3 o'clock in the morning and the battery wasn't dead, right?
Wow.
The black, Apple, sometimes you gotta plug it back up to the laptop to
Yeah.
reset, right? Or the internet is messed up and I don't have cable, so I only watch Roku TV, right? So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to the bathroom. My computer's dead, my iPad is dead, my phone is dead, the TV's dead, and I'm up. What I gotta do now? Pray. Talk to God. Right? He'll make it so you become uncomfortable so he can talk to you
For
and
sure.
deal with your inner issues, your enemy, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I hear God's voice. I hear God's voice through prayer. I hear God's voice through fasting. And I think last year, I've probably fasted more last year and the year before than I probably did in a long time. Not because I want to lose weight. It's a great thing, but I really want my life to be pleasing in God's sight.
Yeah.
So I find myself doing things much differently on this side of accepting a call than I did on the other side.
Right.
So that's really what it is. I really do think that, and I'm always thankful to Bishop because he gave me the opportunity to not only minister but to heal.
Yeah.
Right.
He's good for that. He is gonna make sure you're healed
Yeah.
before you do anything.
Yeah. And I was, you know, it was hard. It was hard, but I'm thankful for every moment that I was able to get the healing that I need so that I can function whole and
Yeah.
and be able to pour to somebody else, right? And then be able to replenish somebody else, right? Because you can't replenish and you can't rapport when you're empty yourself.
Exactly.
You really can't. And so, we talk about community, we talk about replenishing, rapport, vacation, all of that was wrapped up in the hands that was laid upon me to release the prophetic gift. So I don't take none of that for granted. Um it was just the time. It was just the timing. It was
Sure.
just the timing. And I'm forever thankful. I will forever be thankful because I'm healed, and I learned that. And I was telling some of my coworkers at work, um, I can tell I'm healed because things don't bother me like they used to.
Yeah.
Right. I'm, hosting my conference and my ex-husband is on the conference coming to do praise and worship.
Oh wow.
I'm
Okay.
healed and we can do ministry. We can't be married, but we can do
But
ministry.
you can do ministry.
can do ministry, right? But that's healing.
Yeah.
That's a sign
Good.
that, what? That's healing. Because there was a moment where he and I couldn't even have a conversation with each other, and we got a kid together. So the conversation was through his mom
Mm.
because we couldn't have one together.
Right.
It was just earlier this year he got my telephone number. Like we can text each other, laugh and joke and have conversation and stuff, but that's healed. So
Yeah.
now when I'm pouring from a healed fountain. I'm not pouring from a broken glass that
Yeah.
got or a broken vase that got some cracks in it and some water scooting out of it. She's
Mm-hmm.
healed. Like this is a healed girl. Like this is what healed looks like. And healed is great. Healed and happy.
Yeah. To
Healed and happy. Like not, I was saying to one of my friends, even as a creative, right? Being a woman, being single. This was the first Valentine's Day that I was not upset that I didn't have a Valentine. That tells me I'm healed. Right? I'm not mad at nobody who got Valentine's. Like that's your thing.
right.
Whatever God got for me or whoever God got for me, that person will come into my space in the right time.
Right.
but I'm healed. I'm not upset that nobody didn't give me no Valentine's Day, because you have to let some of those things go. How can you prophesy in your hurt? How can you minister? Because you don't minister all the way 100% full. You sometimes do minister out of hurt and you bleed on people.
Yes.
You do bleed on people, right? So we talking about being creative, we talking about saved, but we got to be whole, we got to be happy, we got to be loving, we got
Yes.
to be pure, we got to be honest. Those are the things of the text. It tells us to think upon these things, right?
Yes.
Whatever's good and honest and pure, we think upon those things. And so as a creative, these are the things that I got to think upon. I can't have jealousy in my heart. I don't have jealousy in my heart. I don't have time to be jealous. I don't have time to be jealous of nobody. I don't. I got two kids. I don't have time to be jealous. Like there's no reason for me to be jealous. You on the platform, that's great. I'm
Right.
happy for you. I'm pushing. This
Right.
show, you like podcasts? Go forward, girl. Go all the way till you can't do it no more. And don't even I'll say to you, don't get distracted because other people have podcasts, right? But that doesn't mean everybody's talking the same thing. There's 70 million people in America, right? This world has enough people to have several podcasts going around, right? Several
That's
prayer
true.
conferences, several events, several flyers. I just seen somebody else post out, "Oh, I'm doing flyers. I'm doing this. I'm doing that." I'm like, my God, how many people are doing flyers? Everybody's doing flyers, right?
Right.
It's everybody got t-shirt business. It is what it is. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And sometimes, and I know this is probably off track, but sometimes we get frustrated because we say other people are doing it, so I'm not going to do it too,
Hmm.
right? But that doesn't mean you stop doing it, because there is somebody's voice that's ready for your voice.
Right.
Right? And they're not going to tune in to other people's podcasts. They're going to tune into Malika's podcast because Malika struck something in them that they heard, they saw, and they're like, "Oh, I want to see what she got. I want to see what she's saying." And then that person says, "Oh, you got to come join this podcast so you can listen to this person because this person is saying things that's going to help bless my life." Right? So just because somebody else is doing it, you can't get frustrated and say, "No, I'm not going to do it," or I don't have time to do it. I'm going to be frustrated in this. You know, so, somebody else is doing it. They got, such amount of viewers. Their YouTube channel is doing all of this. But everybody's process is different. Everybody's crushing is different. Everybody's pearl is going to be different. That pearl, some pearls come out big, some come out small, some
Hmm.
come out black, some come out pink, some come out yellow, but it's still a valuable pearl.
Absolutely.
It's still a valuable pearl. So just you can't don't get frustrated. Don't get frustrated. And the Bible says, despise not small beginnings. Despise or not, right? So you got to be
Right.
consistent in it. That's why I
Yeah.
tell the kids, you got to be consistent and accountable.
Yes.
Consistency and accountable. Because people start looking for it. And if you stop
Yep.
it, then people are looking for something that you started, because those voices are attached to what you started.
Mm.
So why would you want to lose those voices because you saw somebody else doing the same thing?
Right.
But they don't have that person's voice. Every shepherd has their own set of sheep,
That's true.
right? So we always take the shepherd as the pastor, but every shepherd has their own flock of people.
For sure.
So you can't be frustrated in what God has given you the work to do. Keep going.
I definitely will. And that's literally what happened. Like when I had taken a hiatus because of a lot of crazy stuff that was going on in my life last year. Um and actually Jacqueline Thomas, mom Jacqueline Thomas, she asked me about the podcast. And other people would ask me, here and there, and I'm like, but it was something about when she asked. If she she's a prophet too. So it's like everything she does is for a reason. Like she asks me certain things and I know now, I'm like, you're asking me this on purpose. And so later on that same day, she ended up prophesying to me saying um, that I put myself on reserve and it's time to come off of reserve. She was like, God didn't do that, you did. And that's when I knew it was time. Like it was time for me to come back. And I had actually, at one point, while I was away, at one point, because I have a problem with, well, used to have a problem with finishing things. So I kind of started to doubt myself. Like, I'm not really going to get back to this. I'm not really going to do it. But it was something about when she asked me and she, prophesied and prayed with me about this, it kind of gave me that push that I needed. And I was also taking time to heal. So like you talking about healing and ministering and things from a healed place, like that really resonated with me. Like me taking that time, I've been healing from a lot of things for years, but last year taking that time to heal from the hits that I took and things of that nature, it's there's like a fearlessness in me. Like I'm not afraid. I used to be really afraid of what people would think or what people would say about the things that I did. I had a fear of people. You know how the word says, like, don't fear people in their faces. I believe
Mhm.
that's what it says. I used to have that, but I don't have that anymore. You know, I almost, well, yeah, I pretty much expect like pushback about when I speak about certain things or when I bring certain things up. And normally, people would be like, "Oh, I didn't like what you said. I didn't like this, didn't like that. I didn't appreciate that." And that would be enough to make me stop. But now I'm just like, "Okay, I take it as feedback. Like it's all feedback."
Feedback and fuel.
Yes. Feedback and fuel.
Mhm. Oh, you didn't like that? Okay.
Well, all
Well,
right.
let
Well,
me try a little. Let me step on your toe a little bit more. Then, you know,
yeah,
um, constructive criticism is great.
for
One
sure.
thing I used to do, and it's funny you said that because I used to do, and they come up on my timeline every now and then. Probably about during the pandemic, I used to do morning motivations.
Hmm.
Took me like 15 minutes to get to work, so I would, jump on for 15 minutes and share something. And a couple of weeks ago, I was led to jump on Facebook Live, and I'm not big on Facebook Lives. Um, I just don't like them. But I was led to jump on Facebook Live and talk about the heart posture. Like, what have you hidden? The Bible says, "The Word of God have I hidden in my heart, so that I might not sin against it."
Right.
And I was on Facebook Live, and I was talking about what have we really hidden in our hearts. Are we really hiding the word of God in our hearts? Or is this why we got so much sin? Because his word, it's not in our heart for us to hide it so that we know what to not sin against, right?
Right.
And it was like really good. Like it was really getting good to me, right? And I was at work and I was like, I'm gonna finish this. Like I'm gonna finish this whole thing, right? And and then I went inside of work or whatever, and I hadn't been on Facebook Live doing any of those kind of things probably in like 2 years, right? 2 or 3 years. And one of the pastors that used to get on my morning affirmations, he said to me, "You're definitely not the same person that used to do those a couple of years ago. I see so much more growth in you." Right? He said, "Not that you didn't have a lot to say then, but I can tell you've been with God." Right? And I
Yeah.
was like, "So what you trying to say?" Like in the party, you're like, "What?
Right.
I was like, "What?" But then I realized that for him to say that and know me in the situations that I was prior, is that he realized I was really pouring from a healed fountain.
Yeah.
Right? He said, "I can tell you've really been with God." And some people chuck it up and laugh and say, "Oh, Delaware's been good to you," right? And kind of say it that way because they don't never want to say like you were going through where you were at. But it's really the fact of saying, I s- you're pouring such a well fountain now. You're pouring from such a healed place, you know. And I went back and I listened to it and I was like, "Oh yeah, it was kind of good there. That was a little, that was like, Bert, all right, you got a little something, something." But I listened to the other lives and I can tell, hmm, I am pouring from a healed fountain, you know. So I say that like you're not the same Malika that you were a year ago. And something is always to write down, where were you to where you are now?
Yeah.
right? And you can see your steps, like you can see your growth steps, and where you want to be. One thing we used to do when we were younger is the 5-year plan. You get with a relationship and you're like, where you see yourself in 5 years? Well,
Yeah.
we got to do that with ourselves. Where do I see myself next year if the Lord shall delay is coming? Where do I
Right.
see myself at tomorrow? you know, I was on my way home from work today and I was on the phone and I said to my friend, I graduated in June. I said, you know what? I want an $80,000 job. I don't want nothing less than 90,000. That's what I'm looking for now, right? Um, and she was like, "Well, speak it, prophet, speak it." And I was like, "But what would I do with $90,000 job?" Right? I mean, I got to work, but
Right.
but it's a healed place to be in, right? Where I'm not settling for less,
Right.
right? So when you become healed, you can replenish, you can repour, but you don't settle for less.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm not. No, that's mediocre to me. No, I'm not doing that no more. So I encourage you to keep on doing what God has called you to do. You know, it's a different task, but you're equipped for it. You know, um, you're equipped for it, and you think even with your healing process and everything that you went through, it equipped you to now be First Lady Malika, right?
Yeah.
Because the young ladies that will come in to the ministry will have similar issues,
True.
and they will look to you as their spiritual mother, their spiritual aunts, their big sisters that can literally help them navigate through things. And you'll be like, God, did I really go through all of this just to bring one person out? It's one thing, I tell people all the time, I didn't know what it was like to be abandoned, but I was abandoned on both ends by my mother and my father, right? But God never abandoned me.
Right.
So I know love. Now, whether or not I know how to give love was a different story.
Hmm.
I had to learn how to give love because my love came from hurt. And so in hurt, I looked for replacements, right? But I'm
Right.
healed. So I know how to give love. I know how to receive love, you know, but I know not to abandon nobody. So I don't abandon my children
Yeah.
because I don't want them to feel what I've ever felt. Right? And so that's my commitment to ministry, to being a creative, is to be present, to always be present, but to have that boundary and reset that boundary to stay
Right.
to go to sleep, eat, to eat
Yeah.
healthy. I'm 4 months free almost of beef.
Oh
So
wow.
I eat a hamburger every now and then, but it's very few far and in between now with
Hmm.
hamburgers. It's a lot more fish, and shrimp, a lot more vegetables, not a lot of starch,
Hmm.
because I'm committed to living long and
Yes.
being healthy while I'm living. I'm not preaching the gospel sick.
Not at all.
Not at all. I'm not doing it. Too many people dying, and I
Yeah.
don't want to be one of them. I want to live a long
Right.
time.
I want to live a
My
long.
great grandchildren.
Yeah. Me too. And we actually just came off of a consecration, and my appetite has changed a lot. Like I've always been lactose intolerant, but I was one of the ones who like didn't take it seriously. So I was still out here. I was still Mike would just shake his head at me like
I
you
do it
know
every now and then. I'll have some ice cream.
mm-hmm.
'Cause I'm lactose intolerant too, but not 100% because there's things I can eat. So I can eat eggs,
Uh-huh.
but I can't eat scrambled eggs. So I'll
Oh,
eat my
okay.
eggs over easy, or
Hmm.
I can eat deviled eggs because they're mixed with other stuff.
Right.
Um, but I can't eat scrambled eggs at all. I don't know what it is about a scrambled egg. I just cannot eat it. I don't drink milk, so I don't eat cereal.
Hmm.
Um, and ice cream does me bad. I like real ice cream, but like sherbet and all of that, I can
Hmm.
eat that all day long. But
Oh,
every now and then I'll get a taste for some ice cream, and I know it's going to tear me up, but I'm going to eat it. And I'll just suffer with it later, but I'm going to eat it. But yeah,
yeah. I tried I tried eating dairy after the consecration, and I started getting these really bad stomach cramps, and I was just like, you know what, this ain't worth it.
Yeah.
So just
Especially when your body hasn't had it for a while.
yeah,
It tries to figure out what are you doing because
yeah,
you haven't had this. Now you're putting it back in, and so yeah, I've been probably on and off fasting since the beginning of the year. But I think the last time I had beef was Thanksgiving, and that was pot roast, and I really love pot roast.
mm,
But I think the last time I had beef was pot roast, and I haven't had any real beef. Like, so I'm a steak eater. I haven't had a steak.
yeah,
Um, and it's been, I go to the steak houses and sometimes they have really great salads, and I'll get a salad with some shrimp or salmon on top of it, or
hmm
some salmon and double broccoli. If I've already had my helping of starch during the week. I'm not a big bread eater, so I don't have to worry about that. But you have to you make the adjustments.
for sure.
You make the adjustments. So,
Yeah.
and I was on blood pressure medicine, and I don't want to be on that. So I
Oh,
make the health adjustments.
mm.
Yep.
Oh man, well, this has been great. Like this has been a really, really great podcast, really great episode. Thank you so much for wanting to be on here, for
No,
agreeing to be on here. Um, you're one of the ones who reached out, when I put it out there, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. The way I was doing it before, it just wasn't working. Like I would try to reach out individually, but I was just like, yeah, let me just put it out there. And I say it all the time. Like, well, I've been saying it ever since. Like, I'm surprised at the response that I got. And it's just
uh, I don't know why.
I guess I wasn't thinking of like of this highly enough, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Especially because it's still fairly new. Just like I don't really know. I don't look at the views and stuff like that. So I don't know who's watching, who's not, who's keeping up with this and who's not. So, I didn't, I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna try this. I'm just gonna put it out there. And I didn't think I thought maybe like one or two people will respond. But like I have a whole list. Like you're just the third person on my list. Like,
it's almost taking you through the whole year, isn't it?
yeah, like honestly, I'm actually ahead on content. Like one episode dropped. I'm actually gonna work on the one I did last week. I have to work on that one, and so I'm kind of it's actually it's set me up for like the next few weeks, and like I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you and everyone else who's reached out. And this is just one topic. Like I
Yeah,
have a list of other topics and things, and I'm just it. I'm excited. Like I'm excited for where this is gonna go, who's gonna be on here, and who's gonna be sharing with me and with everyone else who watches.
I'm
So
excited to see where God takes this and take you.
yeah,
Another
I'm
ministry. It's another avenue of ministry.
for sure.
It's another avenue of ministry because people can be honest.
Yeah,
It's not
this
a
is
church setting.
yeah. I want this. I definitely want this to be a safe space for people. I want people to be. Not that I'm trying to like get the tea or nothing like that, but I want people to be comfortable and feel safe, speaking about different topics. I want them to be able to speak freely and not be afraid, or not think that I'm trying to air them out, like it's not that. Like this is not that.
Definitely not that. It's
Yeah.
great. I love it.
Thank you.
Hope you
And
bring me back on.
huh?
Hope you bring me back on, like when you get
Oh
big
yeah.
time. Don't forget the little people.
Oh no, I'm not gonna forget about you. You're gonna be one of the ones who comes back a few times. Like
Don't forget the
and-
little people when you get to the top.
yeah, we're gonna look back on this episode and smile and laugh. I'll probably cry. Yeah, you'll definitely be back for
Most
sure.
definitely.
For
I
sure.
appreciate the opportunity to share with you.
Yeah. Like I'm glad. This was really good. I know I took a lot from it. And anybody else who listens or watches, I'm sure they're gonna take something from it too.
Amen.
For sure.
That's all we can do. Share the word.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. So,
Mhm.
why not?
Yeah.
But oh, I almost forgot. So before we wrap, tell the people where they can find you and how they can keep up with everything.
You can keep up with everything that I do on all social media handles. It is at I am Des Burt. That's easy. Or you can follow me on my website at www.desireeburt.com. So, you know my name. You can find me anywhere. All my pages are open, but it's definitely at I am Des Burt. So that is where you can find me at on all social media handles. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter with the same handles. So
There you go, guys. So
that's
now
it.
y'all know where to find her. If you liked what you heard, and if you're interested in like the things that she has going on, you know where to find her. Um, that's all we have for this episode of Have a Little Talk. I want to thank you all for joining me. Definitely stay tuned for more episodes because there are more coming. Thank y'all. I love y'all. Have a good morning, night, afternoon, whatever time. And we will see you next time.